In the year 2483, Earth had become a world of peace. After centuries filled with battles and struggles, humans finally chose a different path, one built on knowledge, unity, and progress. Nations no longer fought over borders or power. They built shared cities that floated in the skies and farms that grew food beneath the oceans. Technology solved old problems like hunger, disease, and pollution. War had become something children only read about in digital books or saw in museum halls where dusty weapons hung behind glass. Military schools had long been turned into places for learning history, science, and the arts. For the first time in history, Earth was truly united, and its people believed they had moved beyond the need for conflict. But deep in space, far, beyond the edge of Earth's reach, another civilization had taken notice. The Thalrex, an old and proud alien race, had been watching silently from the shadows of the stars. To them, strength was measured by how well a species could dominate others. They had built an empire across dozens of planets through power and fear. When they first observed Earth's signals, they expected to find a dangerous rival. Instead, what they saw puzzled them. Humans walking freely without weapons, governments with no armies, and no signs of defense systems ready for war. Earth looked open, calm, and almost naive. Their commanders watched for weeks, then months, searching for any hidden sign of military force but found none. They mistook Earth's peace for weakness and its silence for surrender. To the Thalrex, a planet without soldiers was already conquered. A scout ship was sent closer, hidden behind the moon's shadow. It scanned the Earth's networks and found music, art, and science, but no war codes, no encrypted battle plans. One of their captains sent a final message back to their High Council: "Humans have forgotten how to fight." That message was all the Thalrex needed. They believed Earth would be an easy prize, a soft world to fold into their empire without resistance. With cold confidence, they began planning a silent invasion. Their ships moved into position beyond Earth's view, cloaked by technology far beyond anything humans knew. The people of Earth, unaware of the danger approaching, continued their daily lives, gathering in peaceful cities, exploring the stars for beauty, not for conquest. But change was coming. In the stillness of space, the Thalrex fleet prepared to descend. And while Earth remained calm on the surface, something deep and forgotten still slept in the corners of human memory. Something the Thalrex had not seen and would soon regret overlooking. The skies above Earth changed in an instant. Without warning, the stars vanished behind a strange haze as the Thalrex made their move. They didn't arrive with noise or chaos, but with quiet precision. One by one, satellites blinked out, communication towers went dark, and power grids across continents began to flicker. Then came the atmospheric suppressors, strange machines that floated silently above cities, dimming sunlight and altering the air, creating a feeling of pressure, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. Messages appeared on every screen, every device, every corner of the digital world, a demand for Earth's surrender. At first, people froze, unsure what was happening. The leaders held emergency meetings, but their systems were jammed. Scientists tried to scan the alien crafts, but the data returned blank. In those first few hours, fear settled in, not from violence, but from the sudden loss of control. Yet Earth did not collapse. In quiet corners of the planet, something old and powerful began to rise. Not weapons, but memory. In a small library, near what was once a military college, a retired historian named Elliot uncovered sealed archives, dusty but intact. Inside were ancient writings on human strategy, stories of resilience, and codes written by generals long gone. Across the ocean, an orbital AI, long dormant and thought obsolete, activated by a hidden signal buried deep in Earth's code. It quietly linked with underground networks and began analyzing the alien tech. Elsewhere, former athletes who once competed for medals now trained for endurance under different skies. Engineers who once designed art museums started building underground shelters with recycled tech. Scientists who once focused on space gardens began repurposing weather drones to track the enemy. There were no sirens, no battle cries, just silent preparation. Across the world, neighborhoods became networks. Families became teams. Students turned classrooms into command centers. It was not panic that filled Earth's people. It was purpose. The Thalrex had studied humans from a distance, but they had missed the most important detail. Humans are builders by nature, and when threatened, they rebuild themselves into something stronger. In less than a week, the phrase began to spread across hidden frequencies and solar-powered screens. We haven't forgotten. We've evolved. The words carried more than defiance. They carried truth. Humanity hadn't abandoned the idea of strength. They had reshaped it into knowledge, connection, and adaptability. The Thalrex had struck with confidence, expecting silence in return. Instead, they had awakened minds sharper than swords, networks faster than any fleet, and hearts that burned with the quiet fire of survival. The people of Earth did not look to their past for weapons. They looked to it for lessons. And every hour, in every hidden lab, secret shelter, and darkened server room, the next chapter of Earth's story was being written, not by generals, but by everyday people rising with calm determination. The spark had been lit, not with fire, but with focus. And soon, the Thalrex would learn that they had not invaded a weak world. They had disturbed a planet that remembered everything, even in peace. The Thalrex had entered Earth's skies with great confidence, expecting to face a world that would kneel without resistance. But within days of their invasion, they found themselves caught in a struggle they had never trained for. Their well-planned systems began to fail, not from attack, but from quiet confusion. Cargo ships carrying their supplies were rerouted mid-journey, landing in the wrong places or disappearing entirely. Communication signals were scrambled, their orders delayed or changed without notice. The aliens tried to understand what was happening, but their technology had no defense against creativity. Hackers hidden beneath cities used old internet cables and wireless tricks to confuse and mislead the invaders. In the farmlands, peaceful fields turned into clever traps, where farming drones, once used to care for crops, were reprogrammed to detect movement and send silent alerts across the resistance network. Barns became workshops, and silos turned into safe houses. On the surface, everything looked calm, but underground, something new was growing. The resistance had no official leader and wore no uniforms, but it was organized through purpose and shared belief. In forgotten warehouses and abandoned schools, former game designers built simulations using old VR headsets and augmented reality glasses. These training programs, once created for entertainment, were now tools to teach survival, strategy, and teamwork. In only days, people who had never touched a weapon learned to outsmart machines far more advanced than anything Earth had known. Meanwhile, on the Moon, a story once dismissed as a myth proved true. Deep beneath its surface, sealed away by old Earth powers during a forgotten Cold War, a hidden fleet began to stir. These ships, buried in silence and protected by forgotten codes, were powered by early fusion engines and designed for a war that never came. Now, reactivated by a group of engineers who followed blueprints passed down through generations, the WoW fleet prepared to rise. Slowly, the resistance became more than a scattered effort. It became an organized force. But this force was not built from hate or anger. It did not seek revenge or conquest. It was powered by something deeper, the belief that freedom must be defended, not with destruction, but with courage and cleverness. The Thalrex, who measured power by strength and size, were confused by this quiet defiance. They searched for generals to capture, but found none. They waited for full-scale battles, but instead faced empty cities with traps hidden beneath the streets. Their machines grew tired, their crews confused, as nothing went as expected. Across Earth, a quiet strength took shape. Children carrying messages between safe zones, artists painting symbols of hope across broken walls, scientists discovering new ways to protect their people using only light, sound, and code. The aliens had thought the humans were unprepared, but they had misunderstood the very core of humanity. Earth's people did not need to carry weapons to be strong. Their greatest tools were their minds, their ability to adapt, and their unwillingness to give up. Each act of resistance, no matter how small, was part of something larger. From mountains to cities, deserts to oceans, the planet itself seemed to resist. The Thalrex, for all their ships and machines, found themselves lost in a war they could not control. A war where every shadow could hide a plan, and every quiet voice carried the spirit of a people who refused to be broken. And though Earth had no standing army, it now had something more powerful, a united resistance shaped not by power, but by purpose. The Thalrex had believed their overwhelming force would be enough to crush Earth's resistance, but they had underestimated the power of human creativity. As the alien invaders launched their massive offensive, with fleets of warships and battalions, descending upon Earth in an attempt to break the planet's will, they found themselves caught in a war that refused to follow any known rules. The humans, once thought weak and unprepared, had turned the battlefield into something unrecognizable to their enemies. They began to strike back in ways that defied all logic. Entire cities appeared to collapse, only for the Thalrex to find that they had been deceived. What seemed like a retreat was nothing more than a carefully planned trap, designed to lure the alien forces into a field of hidden explosives or a web of digital illusions. A group of former software developers, using only outdated computers and satellites, created complex holograms that made it seem as if the resistance was everywhere and nowhere at once. The Thalrex began attacking shadow armies that didn't exist. What looked like a simple path through the forests turned into a maze of false trails and hidden bunkers, each filled with surprises the invaders were unprepared for. Human ingenuity was no longer confined to everyday tasks. It had become a weapon in itself. As the battle raged across continents, the Thalrex realized that this war would not be won by overwhelming firepower. It would be a war of persistence, of cleverness, and of heart. And in this kind of war, the aliens were losing. But the humans' fight had begun to inspire something beyond Earth. Among the stars, alien races who had long suffered under Thalrex rule saw the uprising on Earth and took note. There were whispers in their societies, small rebellions that turned into larger movements. The Thalrex, once feared as conquerors, now faced enemies not just from Earth, but from their own empire. Alien species that had been enslaved, forced into servitude, or erased from the map began to rise. The Thalrex could not suppress them all at once. Each world had its own resistance, ignited by the courage and defiance of the people of Earth. The sky above Earth became a swirling battlefield, with ships from other worlds joining in, not to conquer, but to stand alongside the humans who had sparked the fire of freedom. And yet, even with all the changes happening around them, the humans did not fight out of rage. They had no hatred in their hearts. They fought not because they were angry, but because they had a purpose. Every move they made was calculated. Every action taken was for the future. They fought not just to defend their homes, but to protect their way of life, their shared vision of peace and freedom. As the battle intensified, the Thalrex found themselves trapped, caught in a war they could not control, against an enemy they could no longer understand. Human resilience was not something the Thalrex could bomb into submission. It was a force of nature, impossible to defeat with sheer power alone. As the alien ships struggled to keep up with the shifting tides of battle, one thing became clear. Earth's fight was no longer just about defending a planet. It had become a movement, a symbol of resistance and hope that would echo across the galaxy. The Thalrex, once certain of their victory, now found themselves questioning everything. And in the face of their overwhelming force, Earth's people pressed forward not in fury, but with a quiet, unshakable determination to protect what they had built, and what they would never allow anyone to destroy. The final battle took place high above Earth in the vast emptiness of space. It was a sight unlike any other, as the last Thalrex warship, once believed to be unstoppable, faced the full might of Earth's united resistance. The warships from Earth, once humble and limited in design, now flew with a confidence born of purpose and unity. The Thalrex had fought with all their strength, bringing everything they had left, but Earth's forces were prepared. The space above the planet became a whirlwind of maneuvering ships, brilliant flashes of light from energy shields, and digital warfare that scrambled the invaders' communication systems. But the Thalrex, for all their might, could not predict the outcome. Slowly, methodically, the last Thalrex warship began to break apart, its defenses overwhelmed by the ingenuity of the humans who had fought not with fury, but with precision. As the massive ship finally fell into Earth's orbit, a silence swept across the battlefield. Earth's forces had won, but the victory was not one of destruction. There would be no last, glorious explosion, no final blow of revenge. Instead, as the dust of battle settled, Earth's leaders, representing every corner of the planet, sent out a message that would echo across the stars. The words that followed were simple, yet filled with strength. We never forgot how to fight. We simply chose when to fight and why. It was a statement of purpose, not of anger, a declaration that humanity had not been defeated because they had chosen peace, not because they had forgotten their strength. The Thalrex, once confident in their superiority, now stood humbled. For the first time, they understood the true power of Earth. It was not in the weapons they had once feared, but in the restraint they had shown, and in the unity they had forged under pressure. The message was heard not only by the Thalrex, but by other species across the galaxy, including those who had once been enslaved by the Thalrex. The human victory had sparked something in the hearts of countless other races. They saw that it was possible to rise up, to stand together, and to choose a path that honored strength, not for domination, but for freedom. In the days that followed, a galactic treaty was signed, one that bound many worlds together in peace, with Earth at its heart. Earth, once underestimated and thought weak, had become the symbol of something far more powerful. Strength through restraint, courage through unity. The stars themselves seemed to shine brighter as the message of Earth's victory spread. And as the people of Earth looked up at the stars, they knew that when humanity chooses to rise, they rise not as individuals, but as one. The galaxy had learned a lesson that day. Humans were not to be conquered. They were not just a species of war. They were a species of resilience, of creativity, and most importantly, of unity. And in this new age, they would stand not as conquerors, but as protectors of their world, of their allies, and of the peace they had fought so hard to preserve.